Ladies and gentlemen, Black Myth Wukong has been such a massive success, and it's just another prime example of what it means when the woke try to boycott something, when the woke try to tell you, oh, this game is not good because there's not enough black people in it, when they try to melt down over the fact that diversity is not being showcased at the forefront. Instead, the story is they can't take it. So now we have another example of a massive loss and a massive L for the modern audience to take. Black Myth Wukong has defeated DEI cancellation efforts and has turned tenfold profit in just 2 weeks following the release of the game.
You won! You did it! You did it! I knew you would! I just knew you would!
Now, I got to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I love to see this. I am here for this every single day that I possibly can be here for this, because when it comes to games like Black Myth Wukong, they are so simplistic in nature. They just simply try to entertain while also respecting the source material of which is based from. I know it's something that is very few and far between these days, especially if you're consuming Western-only content, but ultimately, we have seen now that China is fully capable of entering the AAA market and dominating. So let's get into this article, guys, from Bounding Into Comics. But of course, before we do, if you are new here, just consider hitting that subscribe button. I would greatly appreciate it, and like the video to push us out into that YouTube algorithm. It says, in just 2 weeks, Black Myth Wukong has shattered all expectations, raking in nearly 800 million in sales. This has made it one of the fastest selling games in history, setting a new benchmark for the action RPG genre, and it's performed so well despite a concerted effort to attack the game for a lack of diversity. And again, ladies and gentlemen, imagine looking for diversity, equity, and inclusion in a game that features a fucking Monkey King. This is just irony at its finest. They don't even understand how ironic the entire request is from the modern audience. The modern audience played this game just as much as actual gamers did. Because here's the truth about the modern audience. They actually play the same shit that the chuds play. They only pretend like they don't, and they only pretend as if they want all these woke-ass video games that are so amazing for representation, but really, that's not what they actually play. You know, the numbers don't lie. It's very obvious that the modern audience does not show up for this shit, and the ones that do, they end up regretting paying the money for whatever game they purchase, and they end up refunding it or leaving the game entirely. This is what happened with Concord. Concord ended up having 697 maximum players on Steam, and it dropped by 200 in just less than 1 week, and then another 200 after 2 weeks, until eventually it was like 30 people playing the game. Mind you, you need 10 people in order to get into a lobby. It was the most pathetic thing anybody has ever seen in their entire life. And Concord is going to go down in history as a massive failure for Sony. And not only Sony, Firewalk Studios, obviously. Black Myth Wukong is developed by the Chinese studio Game Science and financially supported by the Chinese tech giant Tencent. Journey to the West, the game draws heavy inspiration from the classic Chinese novel Journey to the West, centering on the character Sun Wukong, also known as the Monkey King. The game is set in a mythological version of ancient China, full of otherworldly creatures and bosses that will give you a run for your money. The game's impeccable visuals, Souls-like style combat, and more have pushed it towards a global audience in ways previously thought impossible for a game from China. And that's what makes this the most amazing thing about all of this, right? Because China literally saw an opportunity to capture a market that the mainstream industry is sleeping on, right? Like the Western game developer industry, that industry is absolutely positively sleeping on the actual real gamer audience. They're so busy focusing on the modern audience that they cannot actually connect with the real audience. So not only do they end up losing massive amounts of money, but they end up closing down normally after decisions like this that cancel the game after 10 days. Nobody will cancel a game after 10 days unless both of these things happen, right? Either they lost faith in the game, knowing that they were never going to get a player base, it was not looking good, Or ultimately, they realize that shit, the modern audience didn't show up. Let's cancel this so we can make this a free-to-play game later on at some point. Ultimately, Concord is going to be a massive failure. Whether they re-release it as a free-to-play game or not, it doesn't matter. $200+ million between both studios, Sony and Firewalk, to lose that amount of money, that's not pretty. I gotta imagine that Firewalk has a ton of meetings with Sony trying to explain what the fuck happened and how they can possibly make it better. And Sony's like, well, we bought you guys, and now we're kind of regretting buying you. You know what I'm saying? So then it says that, with that said, the action RPG is especially important for China, both culturally and within the video game industry. Black Myth: Wukong represents a major step for Chinese developers in the global market, as it showed that a quality AAA title is, in fact, possible. And that's the biggest thing about this, right? China is heavily known for being all about their gacha games, right? That's all they're known for. Well, now they're trying to get into the AAA sector, and they're doing things the right way, which is so disgusting to me, because the West, it should be easy, right? You have all the resources, all the mainstream narrative, and you should be able to easily do this. And yet China is just making the rounds on you. Like, they are taking all your money and you're letting it happen. But of course, ladies and gentlemen, the mainstream Western gaming industry is the most pathetic industry you're probably ever going to witness at this point in time. Now, let's get into the numbers. Within just 3 days of release, Black Myth: Wukong had already sold more than 10 million copies. By the end of its second week, the game has sold over 18 million units, generating around $800 million in revenue. This is more than tenfold the original development cost of $70 million over 6 years. $70 million. They have made $800 million on $70 million. And then once they actually account for expenses and whatnot, this company has all the fucking money in the world it's ever going to need to make another project. And they're going to realize very soon that they don't need anybody else. This is why we have Chinese studios and developers dropping Japanese studios that were helping them make video games, or dropping Western studios that were helping them make video games. China has realized that they can do it all on their own. They don't fucking need anybody in order for this to happen. All they got to do is, at the very least, release it worldwide, and that's it. But otherwise, they don't need to be involved with anybody. It is amazing that this is happening, and it's only happening because people in the Western industry have allowed this to happen by being absolute fucking cucks and letting them get taken over by China. Analyst Daniel Ahmad confirmed these figures and added the following: this makes it one of the fastest selling games of all time, only overshadowed by games like GTA 5 and Modern Warfare 2. That's insane. But that's not the end of the Destin one. According to Bloomberg, Game Science is working on an expansion to Wukong, which will give it a chance to monetize the game a second time. While the announcement of DLC for the action RPG by Game Science is no surprise, since the game set some on Steam records, it is a clear opportunity for Game Science to capitalize on the game's momentum. The expansion would probably pit the Destin one against new bosses, further enriching a narrative that has already stunned the world. It is also no surprise that Game Science is following the trend of Shadow of the Erdtree, as Black Myth: Wukong is not the end of the story that united the world. However, there are also rumors of Black Myth being an anthology series, and a DLC sees a completely new character. So again, ladies and gentlemen, Black Myth: Wukong is an absolute win for gamers. Anybody who wanted to play a real game without having to worry about getting in trouble over it or anything like that, it is just fantastic what they're doing with Black Myth: Wukong. And I'm so glad that the DEI losers over there on Twitter are getting fucking roasted over this game, and rightfully so. You guys are angry that you're not seeing black people in a game that features a Monkey King. I mean, how much more on the nose could you possibly get? But that's the problem with these wokies. They never understand just how ridiculous they look until it's too late. So anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you did enjoy it. If you did, consider leaving me a subscribe. I would greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to like the video, comment, let me know what you thought, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Hypnotic out.